to a weekly basis. I see some people saying, oh my God, I can't do it. I can't do it. I'm lucky I can handle this on an annual basis. How am I supposed to think on a weekly basis? I can't do it. You have to. Because it was the same thing that was facing manufacturing in the 1980s. They had a choice to make. Either they redefined how manufacturing flowed, and they brought in world-class manufacturing techniques and just-in-time and Kanban systems and all these other things, or they were going to be out of business. Some companies did it well. Some didn't, and they're not here anymore. So that's your choice, because as we move forward, we know that our businesses are becoming more and more talent-oriented. We have to figure out how to put new processes in place. You have, and this is your responsibility, you have to start to break down the barriers between HR, procurement, your suppliers, and your senior leadership. And what you have to do is bring them together under a common cause. Use the human capital supply chain mantra, if you want to call it. That can be your common cause. You need to build on existing business functions, even if they're still disjointed. Because what we've found is it always works better. Rather than trying to blow up everything and build it all from scratch, take the pieces that are working. Don't throw out the baby with the bathwater. But use those pieces. So basically, think of this as a renovation. We're not telling you to demolish your systems. We're saying it's time to renovate. And what you have to do with that renovation is keep the things that are working and get rid of the things that aren't. And then start to build it up around this human capital supply chain concept. One of the key things that's so important with any supply chain environment is to connect all the pieces, connect all the business processes. You can't let any of it kind of float around outside the supply chain. Because as soon as you have a process that floats outside the supply chain, it becomes a bottleneck. Every time it becomes one of the worst bottlenecks. Because what happens is, if you develop this manual interface, we don't know how to connect them, so we're just going to re-input everything. It's a bottleneck. And also, we have to embrace the benefits of the continued workforce. We've heard kind of some rumblings about it here today. Now, with our company, we have 20% of our workforce is contingent. That's contractors and temporaries. If you look at the U.S. market, on average, only about 2% of your workforce is contingent. When we rebuild our workforce, we want to think about this, and maybe our goal is 20% of our workforce is going to be contingent. Like I said, that's a big change for most corporations. But think about what works for you. And when you take those different categories of part-timers, temps, consultants, contractors, how can you rebuild your organization with them making up 20% of your workforce? Now, I'm just going to give you a quick sample here of one company we've been working with. We picked an airline just because of Ed. So anyways, we're a company called EasyJet. And one of the things we've found with implementing human capital supply chains is you have to work with 3 different aspects. You first have to work with the people aspects. Because if you don't get those people aspects and those responsibilities worked out, just like we talked, HR working with procurement, working with the executive level, working with those suppliers, that's the first step, is the people side. And what we're able to work with EasyJet, again, they have 6,000 employees, kind of a mid-sized company in Europe. But one of the things we focused on with the people was improving that candidate placement ratios. And they're able to make great progress in that area. But even more importantly was improving the candidate experience. Again, focusing on just the people experience part of it. Now this focuses on candidates. But you also have to look at what's your relationship with your suppliers. How are you working with them on a regular basis? The second part of any supply chain renovation is process. First, you got to get all the people in the right, You have to have the right people on the right seats of the bus. Deal with people, then you look at process. And you look at what are those processes that are working, what processes aren't working, and how do we want to redefine them? How do we want to renovate? Did you learn about it as you go and talk to your supply chain experts within your companies? Is that it's all about process. It's all about consistency of process. When you see the signs where somebody says, our company is ISO certified, what that means is that somebody has come in and audited all their processes, and they're all consistent. That's what it's about. It's not about the necessarily best practice, but it's consistent throughout your organization. So depending on how many different divisions you have, especially if you're a global organization, how do you get all those processes to be consistent? Because consistency is kind of at the root of searching. After people and after process is technology. And one of the problems right now is we're kind of at the same place manufacturing was in 1980. I mentioned there are all these separate systems. You have purchasing systems, manufacturing systems, quality systems. In corporations, they loved them, but they didn't talk very well to each other. And I know, from being a supplier point of view, whenever a salesperson tells you, don't worry, our system talks with everybody else, run. It's hard. It's hard to get them to work together in the first place, and then what always happens is that one of those vendors changes something, and the interface breaks. But they didn't tell anybody they were going to make the change. So what we see happening is that there will be suppliers out there that will develop integrated solutions for you, where you'll have your HRIS system, your talent management system, and then all your suppliers connected through one vendor and one solution. Those systems are out there now. So you have to start to move away from this mismatch of all these different systems. Work through the process to answer some of your questions. But it's not going to answer all the questions specific to your organization. So again, like we said in the beginning, we start with knowing what your spend is on human capital. Understanding what your human capital needs are in a real time. Again, moving from annual to weekly. Being able to make sure you're connected with market dynamics. Because in as much as we've just went through this downsizing, there'll be the upsizing too. It's going to happen fast and furious. So it's better to put these systems in place now in your processes. We're going to need the ability to ramp down and ramp up our workforce. And when you think about it, would you ever consider running a manufacturing plant without a real-time changing schedule? You would. Would you ever think about running an airline without a schedule that's changing real time? But from a talent point of view, we don't think that way. We don't think real time. The social networking things are forcing us to. But our back-end systems aren't tied together. And our processes aren't ready for that quickness of reaction time. So, we talked about the fundamentals. Now, I mentioned about the University of Wisconsin. I know we've got the universities here within Chicagoland. But the things you need to learn about more relate to just-in-time, lean operations, total quality management, and Six Sigma. Those are probably things you've been trying to avoid for the last 30 years. You can't avoid them anymore. You have to learn about them. Whether you learn about them on the internet, through the University of Phoenix, however you do it, that's okay. But you have to start learning about them. Now, there's some things not to do. When shopping for technologies, like we said, look at what's working and not working with your existing technologies. Don't throw it all out. Don't lay new technologies on top of inefficient processes. One of the big things that are out there in the market is a lot of CRM systems. When they were implemented with sales organizations, over 50% of them failed. And the reason for that is that sales organizations didn't change their processes, didn't improve their processes. They just took this new CRM technology from Salesforce or one of those other groups, and they dropped it and said, okay, sales team, use it. And you're not going to reap the benefits of this right away. Again, we talked about this as being a 10-year effort for this industry. In many cases, it's going to take probably 5 years for you to get all those things put together. That's how long it took the financial team, that's how long it took manufacturing, that's how long it's taken the sales organizations. The way I look at this is that for all the downside of this recession, and all the pain and all the anguish, this is kind of our opportunity. This is our opportunity for the HR industry to kind of stand up and say, you know what, we have a better way this time around. We're going to do this differently. Because we're just as tired as everybody else on these upswings and downswings and upswings and downswings. We need to. So, you have a choice to make. You either do something now or you don't. It's your choice. You want to rebuild your organization differently than you have in the past? There's theories out there, there's technologies out there to help you do it. Or you can just keep doing it the way you have. It's your choice. No one's going to force you. It's a way for HR and our talent management groups to step up. So you have a choice. Left behind, be a leader. I think everybody in here wants to be that leader.